we die and get thrown into a fucking continuous orgasm.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, could be the best thing ever.
Man.
Although it sounds amazing, like even that would get real old.
Totally.
Right. No, we die and fucking you get tossed into constantly and continuously for eternity getting your throat tattooed with a 45 mag.
Oh God. Your Achilles tendon, yeah.
Yeah. Welcome
like,
to heaven.
How much longer is this? Oh, forever. You know. Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Tattoo Guardians podcast. I'm going to give you just a quick heads up. This one gets a little bit dark, but please hang in there. It's worth it in the end. We spent some time discussing some unfortunate events that have happened in Hip's life. He's unfortunately experienced a lot of death around him in the last couple of weeks, which is something we can all relate to, and we talk about that. We also discussed something that's important to me, where you're not letting things that are uncontrollable in your life take over the things that you do have control of in your life. With that being said, let's get to it.
Good afternoon, my brethren. How are you fellas today?
Fantastic.
Good.
It's great to see you guys.
Awesome. It's good to see you guys too. Man, it's weird. I think just because I've been traveling a little bit, it seems like it's been longer than what it has. But I just got back in town from being on vacation out at Cape Hatteras for a week, chasing my 2-year-old around, which even though it wasn't R&R, it was a lot of fun.
Right.
You know, and it was about a 12-hour drive. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just going to say, are you like, I know a lot of people are like, I haven't taken a vacation in 7 years. I'm always like, man, I don't know about that. You know, are you one of those people, or is that something you try to do like on the regular?
You know, I would be one of those people if my family didn't orchestrate it otherwise, and it's such a tradition. And so I at least take 2 vacations a year. They're usually back to back, one with my dad's side of the family, one with my mom's side. The cool thing is, they couldn't be polar opposite. I get the best ends of each spectrum. So with my dad's side, we're out on smack dab in the middle of a Corona commercial. Basically have our own secluded beach out on Cape Hatteras Island, lap of luxury. It's awesome. Then with my mom's side of the family, we go up to the middle of nowhere in northern Michigan, stay in log cabins and fish for pike and bass every day, all day. Like
nice.
No technology, just like roughing it. And so I feel real fortunate. I get both. They're usually back to back, so they're up there fishing right now. Hoping that after this podcast, I'm gonna hop in the car and drive 6 hours north to join them.
So you're like mid vacation then. You're just taking a little break.
Nice. That's right.
Nice.
But you know what, guys? On my travels, obviously driving 12 hours, and once the kids are cool and situated, you know, I put in my earbuds and listen to a little bit of some of our past conversations. In one, my heart's full, fellas, and for all the listeners, I just want to thank everyone for supporting us, for listening, for sharing, helping us get this message out.
Absolutely.
But in front of everyone, I want to thank you too. You guys have made me and are continually making me a better person, a better man.
Oh, shit.
And I thank you guys for your commitment to this and fucking with me and showing up. Side note, that caused me too. And I actually have a side note now.
Me and Josh will forever laugh at that.
I didn't realize how much I cuss.
Yeah.
Until listening back and realizing.
It's so funny. My wife was telling me the exact same thing. I'm like, how do you think that sounded? And she's like, it sounds really good, but you say fuck a lot.
Talking about me or you?
No, me.
Wow.
And I was like, I've thought about that, but I think that's just the way that I talk. I'm trying to just keep it as real as possible. Tony Robbins, he talks a lot about how, there's power in words. So I just kind of go with that. But I'm like, do I sound dumb or ignorant? And she's like, no, it's just a lot. So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
it's powerful. It's passion.
I thought it was a lot for me. So I may be a little more cognizant about cussing. We'll see.
I think we should just start beeping you, like, even when you don't cuss, but it'll seem like you're just cussing constantly. You know what I mean? It'll be like, I took my family to the beach, but it'll just be like, beep, 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 family. It's like,
beep, 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 and my daughter, beep.
Right, exactly. And then also, Hip and I, now this is embarrassing because, we didn't know you were going to come in and tell us this story about how much you appreciate it, because we were actually going to fire you today So now that's just uncomfortable.
Awkward.
Speaking of fired, I don't know if you've looked at the group text yet.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did.
Okay. Yeah, we were waiting to pull triggers. Like Matt got down here and he was like, "Yes, finally." It's which it isn't a big deal other than it's just funny,
No, I was actually like, for those that are listening, like we have this kind of running joke about who's going to be show up in a timely manner. And I was just telling my wife, I'm like, well, I'm ready to go. So here, let's the waiting game begin. And then you were like, Jesus, Josh, it's 3:15 or 3:01 or whatever. And I was like,
right. The first time we're in integrity. Let's fuck with him. He's 30 seconds out of integrity. Get him.
And yeah, for our listeners, like, when we do like these series or podcasts on a particular thing like integrity, because we did part 2 a couple weeks ago. It hasn't been released yet. It's not. We're learning is why we're doing it, and so we're just making fun of ourselves.
Always.
And I'm always the type that once you get to know me, I like to poke the bear. So it's just funny. Yeah,
love it.
So even I don't know. I imagine the gurus of integrity still are applying and learning and studying it, and it's just one of them hard fucking things. And like sometimes. Last night, for example, other than what I'm going or have went through, which, I'm not looking for pity, but when you guys got on there and Todd got on and was explaining integrity, I'm like, I'm fucking done. I'm cool with listening to integrity for now.
Yeah.
And I had some fucking donuts that my wife got me, and I'm like, yeah, I'd rather eat these donuts than hear a life lesson at the moment. And that's just me personally. I was just fried and done yesterday.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, and nothing against a dot. I love to dot.
Right.
My head was full.
Yeah.
I was almost ready to like hang up my spiritual coat. And like for the last few days, I've been wanting to literally just fucking sleep and like, I don't know, watch all John Wicks and all Jack Reachers and then start a new episode and just watch that. But for whatever it is, something inside of me is like, nah, that's some bitch shit, bro.
Yeah.
And not judging anybody if they do that. I'm just saying me personally, like, because there are times when I just gotta fucking stay in and everybody is given that right, It's just how long do we pitch that tent and live in it?
Right.
Right.
Well, and for our listeners to know and understand too, the past week, I was on vacation at the beach, and you've been through a lot the past week, and obviously not to like. Let's give our listeners an idea without fucking bringing the whole ship down.
Before that, I want to acknowledge you because like Matt went on vacation, right? And I didn't hear shit from him. I don't think anybody did, but that's cool because like that's what a fucking vacation is. Like
exactly, yeah.
And granted, he was like on daddy duty a lot there, which that's already stressful enough. But because he wasn't like putting himself with us, it reminds me of like when I do a lot of jail time, we would say like, you do the time, don't let the time do you. And what that means is like while you're there in jail, don't try to figure out what's going on outside in everyone else's life, because that's just going to make you want to be out there more and make the time longer. So it's kind of similar with vacation. Like you go on vacation, forget that you're a fucking shop owner or that you do tattoo business mastery or we even canceled the podcast last week because he was on vacation. So you can be more present in your vacation and actually enjoy it. And I appreciate that because past ones you were always like checking in or like texting.
It's really the first time that was me practicing being present.
And I practiced not messaging you because there were times when I'm like, oh, fuck, I need to tag in. I need some fucking refueling. And and it forced me to like get it somewhere else or internally and look for it. And it allowed me to keep my big boy pants on. And like a lot of people at the shop were coming to me and asking me for questions, and I purposely was being the observer and like didn't want to be dealing with this shit and didn't want, like yesterday I taught an apprentice, we kind of did some work on like high contrast I said that weird contrast black and gray portrait on his wife, just experimenting, and he wanted to, stick his toes in the water and get wet. And I did not want to be there, and I didn't want to be teaching it, but I did. And I would catch myself getting quick with him, and I'd be like, dude, he doesn't fucking know. Like, observe these feelings, but have the communication come out in a more compassionate and understanding way, to the point that I've been working on my communication. I also had a consult, and I did that shit thorough, like Zach, good thorough. And went back up and was teaching him, and I would say something, and this is something I'm learning about communication too. Just because you communicate it and you say it doesn't give you a right to say you're a good communicator, because you can notice in body language if they're not present when you're saying it. Mm-hmm. And then you can be like, hey, did you get that? Mm-hmm. I'm just now realizing this. And I would reiterate what I said to make sure he got it.
Dude, that's powerful, Hip. That is such growth in being a communicator, is discerning your audience and being aware, Dude, that's so powerful. And yeah, I learned a long time ago, what you say and what they hear oftentimes can be two different things. Mm-hmm. And so, but the fact that your discernment kicked in and you were able to see it or be aware, because you now know to look for it when you were communicating, you read body language to discern how much, if any, did they receive that for you to follow up, recheck in on your communication. Dude, that's powerful, because that type of thinking was not on your radar at one point in your life. I'm just so happy to hear you say that. But to back up a little bit for all our listeners, we all got shit that happens in our life, but just to put this man on a pedestal for a minute, or just because he's inspiring, Hip's been surrounded by death, and he lost several people last week. Best friend that he's known almost his whole life. Then his best friend's daughter got hit in a car wreck, and tragically, and Hip drove him to the hospital in Chicago to be with him and his family while they're like talking about pulling the plug. Like, Hip has just been through it the past week. I don't know how many deaths, and viewings and funerals. In the midst of all of that, that could take anybody out, not only just bum you out, break your heart, all the above, and all that shit was completely out of his control. Mm-hmm. But when I was driving home, I was just thinking and meditating on this. All of us as human beings, the temptation, when things come up in life, tragedy, terrible things can happen that are outside of our control. And when those things happen, oftentimes it can cause us to relinquish, give up on, even cop out on everything in our life that is still in our control, because we're so bummed, hurt by the things that happened outside of our control. And the goal is to try and stay in it, even though we're grieving the pain of what happened that was outside of our control. How do we still honor and stay responsible in our own life, whether it's for our clients, our children, whatever, everything that's still in our control, And oftentimes when people are hurting, they're like, fuck it. And the things that's hurting, that's out of our control, makes us say, fuck everything that's even in my control, right? And last week was an example where Hip could have done that any day of the week. This is proof when Hip says things like, even when he's in a funk, to lose yourself in the service of others. And I watched this man go into servant mode day in and day out to be there for everyone else, even though he's hurting too, with grown men crying too, in the midst of all that, right? He went through all that. And then I come into town, and we're in the shop on Sunday. I just popped in, Hip popped in. We had a coworker that was having communication issues with one of his clients. So Hip stepped in. Sometimes, this, Josh, if we're having communication breakdowns over email or whatever, it's time to get on a phone or even have a in-person authentic conversation. And this is also where we'll bring in another teammate to add value, help bring clarity. And so Hip on it just got back in town on his basically only day off for his own R&R. He decided he was going to go back to the studio and meet our coworker and support him with his client. And that was on Sunday. Monday, the shop's closed, which was yesterday, and Hip, who could be doing anything, decides to go in on his off day when we're closed to help one of our younger artists learn how to do his first black and gray portrait. So, and I was just telling you guys that because a minute ago when Hip said, yeah, I was in there teaching this guy yesterday. I didn't really want to be there. I didn't really want to be doing that, but I did, just to put a little weight and respect on. It's deep. It was deeper than I just wasn't in the mood. It's like, nah, he's been through hell all week. He has a broken heart. He's hurting. And so when he says, I didn't feel like it, that's what he means, but yet still did it. Anyways, and man, I just really admire that the things that have happened that are outside of your control, you have stayed responsible enough to, even when you're like tempted to be like, man, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be here, fuck it all, you notice and you stop and be like, nope, but I'm gonna do it anyways, man. And so I just wanted to acknowledge you for that.
Yeah, it sounds like a rough couple of weeks, man.
Yeah.
And just for transparency, like if you guys hear background noise, I texted little Mike while you were talking and giving me acknowledgement, because like out of nowhere I just got super lightheaded and like a bunch of hot flashes, which is weird because normally I don't eat at this point, but I've experienced things like this in the past, and usually if I put something in my gut, I'm better.
Nice.
But yeah, it just mentally, like I remember like turning 18 and like just seeing the world, and it felt different and it looked different and it smelled different, and then again at 21, which is weird that it was those two ages. But I haven't really experienced that as much as like a long period of time, or I can pinpoint a day to it. But that same reoccurring feeling has been like on me for the last few weeks, and it's weird because this has nothing to do with me, and I'm not good friends with this person other than following them. But when Phil Garcia made the post about his daughter having a stroke in her spine, which I didn't even know you could have strokes in your spine. I don't know why I was like drawn to that post, but I've been reading and kind of watching up on it. And even today I was watching the weekly tattoo review with Jake and Gabe, and there's a female host as well, and I can't remember her name, but they were even talking about it, and it was just weird because like my mom always told me that like bad things and good things and death and births always happen in threes, which I don't know how true that is. I don't know if it's like a placebo and I hear that information and then I can point it out. But yeah, so it went to that, and like I've had a friend, and I didn't realize it until like he was on his deathbed, and he's been on that on and off for like the last month, that like when I first came to recovery, there's like a literature that we get, and he bought mine for me at the first meeting he seen me at, and he signed it, and he told me stay true, stay clean, and I've kept that book, and it's got handwriting in it and scribbles and highlighter marks of just like me trying to learn like these lessons that they teach us, and then it just had me like reflecting on more about him, because I'm at the point, man, I've been clean. I'll have 9 years in March, so a little over 8.5 years, and in that time period there's probably been 30 funerals of people that I've been close to or have met in the rooms or knew prior to that have passed, and it's just kind of like old, and I almost feel bad for saying this, but like, don't people die of things that aren't related to addiction or drinking? And it's almost kind of like, I don't know how to say it without sounding like a dickhead, like I'm hoping for someone, I'm not hoping for, but I just wish another funeral was like, oh yeah, so-and-so passed, and he was 77 years old, and he lived a good life, and passed in his sleep. And it's like, does that not happen anymore? And so my good friend, I just like kind of pushed it off, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, you know, the cold hardness in me. And it was like, well, this is what the fuck happens in this shit. So, you know, they told you when you first got here, make sure you got a nice black suit so you can either have something nice to wear when your friends die around you, or we got something nice to bury you in when you fuck up and go back out. And,
Wow.
And you know, it's a true statement, and it is, and unfortunately it's the reality of it, but it doesn't have to be. And yeah, so like I found out about that. Then another good dude who's...
But what I'm hearing you say right there is your good friend is dying or just died, and you notice you weren't really either processing it, or because didn't you feel like, you know, almost because you've been jaded, you've been hurt so many times, so your default was like, here we go again, fuck it. But and you weren't almost allowing yourself to grieve.
Totally. And to the point to where I've been just blocking it out. And so then another guy that I met in the rooms, actually bigger than me, he was using again, and he died. And I was like, yeah, doesn't surprise me. And kind of putting that off. So like I'm suppressing. And I'm not even aware that I'm doing it. I'm just like caught in the hustle, I guess, or focused on my life. Because I had a sponsee that passed a couple months ago, and I wanted to go to his funeral, but for whatever reason, I was like unwillingly forgetting about it, and I didn't go. And I talked to someone after these meetings that we do, and he told me, he was like, you know, we stay clean for the people that come in so we can be an attraction to them. He's passed, so there's nothing you can do about it. You're powerless over that situation. He's out of pain. And I'm like, cool. So I use that as a cynical justification to be like, well, fuck it. You're going to go die. I ain't got time for you. There's someone that's still alive that I can help. So I was kind of like in that mindset. And then my sponsor was going through something, and he's real good friends with my childhood friend, and he called me up and was talking to me about it, and then out of nowhere just broke, and like his firstborn, his oldest daughter, and out of respects to her, I shouldn't say daughter, she went through a transformation, so I'm not sure what the proper pronoun is, but you know, out of respect for them, yeah, I'll just say that. But she was in a horrible car wreck, and not a wreck. She was sitting at a stoplight, obeying the law, just being a nice, cool fucking person. I'll get jumbled up in this. And someone ran a stoplight and hit him, and like, you know, it's bad. It's really bad. And he broke down to me, and I found out that like it was only him and 2-pack of Newports driving to Chicago, which I just come back from Chicago at a convention 2 weeks earlier. So like I had my fill of it, but like here's a friend in need, like a brother to me. And I went, and we went 3 days ago, and we went up there, and already just the way my head's feeling, and it's weird. And I met his daughter when she lived a few years ago before the transition and everything. And she was inner city, south side of Chicago. So I just had this weird feeling that she looked at me like I was just some corny white dude, and it's cool because it was all love. Yeah. But like the lingo I was using and stuff, I could see she kind of smirked at it because it wasn't what she was used to. Because you go from inner city Chicago to fucking cornfields in Xenia, Ohio, it's a big transition. So I get it, but I go up there and I feel weird because like anytime, one, how do you help someone who's could possibly be losing a child? And it's not only just someone, in my mind, it's someone I've put on a pedestal. Like he basically taught me how to save my life and guides me through
Yeah, because he's your sponsor.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, we go and like, so we start listening to some comedy, you know, because we're already doing a trip neither of us wants to make. And we get up there and I just feel weird and awkward the whole time because like I'm immersed in him and his family in a very intimate and vulnerable and scary situation. So I just try to be whatever light. Like I'm not even trying to be light. I'm just trying to be me and be respectful, and not overstep boundaries. But also like, I don't know, it was just very weird.
And right there, though, Hip, you were there.
Right.
And so oftentimes in these moments, we all wished we could do something more to help, to ease, whatever, save the whatever thing. And none of that is possible. None of that matters. The best thing you can do is be. And you were there. Just being there was enough. But go ahead.
Absolutely.
And it, you know, I mean, I guess that's like just a form of powerlessness. And, you know, it's like I always say that word, but until, I don't know, like life-changing events like this, to really feel it and be a part of it and observe it. And it just kind of, it's humbling because it's like, you're just you know?
Well, okay. Are you still in the mode of like not grieving or allowing yourself to feel any of it, or have you started to like?
So with my sponsor's daughter, it was I knew her, but we weren't close, you know. She came to live with him a couple years ago and just loved Chicago and moved back up there, and has now started a new life, and like everything's changing. So like the reality of just like the unfairness of it, I guess, you know, because there's a beautiful person that's doing nothing wrong, and then in a flash, something like this can happen. So I connected with that, but I was still disconnected from the more intimate people I was closer to.
Yeah.
But, you know, we took some pictures before we left, and like his sister was like, "You're going on our wall now." So like that felt good. And like they were very hospitable, and they made me feel like I've been a part of their family like my entire life. And it's beautiful. And to know that I could be there for someone and go up there during this dark, intimate situation, and like we can laugh and share food and fellowship, and then come back, it felt good. But like on the way home, his mother had called, and you know, I guess the doctors want to like propose a question. And I've always viewed this question of like, you know, do we keep them alive or don't we? Like it's something very simple to make, but being with the father of someone and like seeing this and actually dissecting it and reverse engineering, you know, the will of the individual we're talking about. Are they a fighter? You know, what's their quality of life going to be like if, you know, this happens or if that happens.
This is the conversation where you're debating on pulling the plug.
Yeah. And, you know, I keep dancing around it like it's an elephant in the room, but it's just reality. And I don't know. It's a very scary conversation that I was grateful to be a part of, but also I was grateful that I'm not the one that has to answer this question. So it was like a real life slap in the face of like just how fragile everything is. So yeah, I get back, and like now, like just the feeling of like blah is really on me. Matt's on vacation. People are already hitting me up while I'm in Chicago dealing with this of instances going on at the shop and things and this and that. But it's like, my feelings aren't the center of the universe. So it's like the last thing I want to do is like call and regurgitate a lot of that. So I deal with it, and I just put my other hat on and I deal with that, and get back. And one of the night I get back the next day, my my sponsor, who I just went to Chicago with, and me, our best friend, or his best friend, my lifelong friend, passed at 4:16. And so like I finished doing a half day session, and I noticed too when I was in Chicago, my dumbass, I parked 2 minutes, dude. It took me 2 minutes to get this cup of coffee, and these motherfuckers had my shit up and towed my shit, and they fucked up the sides of it, of my car, which I was kind of pissed about, but given the circumstance of everything around me, material shit doesn't mean nothing. So like we called an Uber, we go get the car, pay $200, drive back to Ohio. Next day I find out my dude died at 4:16. I noticed that my car's fucked up, and then like I tell my wife about it, and I'm leaving, and I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing, but she messages me and says, hey, I'm sorry about your car, and I know you're hurting because Jeremy has passed. And it wasn't until she text messaged that to give me permission to really feel what I was supposed to be feeling. And I'm almost kind of getting choked up with it now, because like from that text message, it was like, you know what, you can cry. This is a friend. Like, you guys have been through a lot of trials and tribulations. And I found myself like riding in the ghettos we would get high in. And the last place that I seen him when I was using, I was in like a trap house, and he came there, and he was clean, and he was being an attraction to me, and he was planting seeds in me then. But me being the asshole that I used to be, I was trying to get high in front of him to lure him back in, so it was someone else I could manipulate and take advantage of. And I drove by there, and I drove by his house where his parents lived, where we grew up together at. And, just the whole listening to music that reminded me of him, or just music that really like makes me cry, I guess, because it's almost had to be forced. And then I ended the night fellowshipping with a bunch of other addicts, and just people were talking about it and stuff, so it was good. I know there's more there. I can feel it even talking about it. But then the following day, like, my wife had to go help her friend, because the other addict that died, there's no one in his family. No one was setting up anything. So it's like a GoFundMe page to get all this shit together. And it's basically on the ex-wife to put all this together, which is already a weird spot. But I get that, like, when you're in love with someone and then you fall out of love with them, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't love them anymore. You're just not in love with them. So she's doing this great job. And for whatever fucking reason, was the day Matt was talking about, I had to meet my coworker and like put out a fire with a potential client that just is not informed correctly. So I had an hour and a half to go to this viewing, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna go to the viewing. And then boom, I go to it, and like I met this dude in recovery, and I have some funny stories with him, but he's always a sweetheart. And then that saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. I don't know if that's necessarily true. It may be, but I know my experience with a lot of big dudes is the bigger they are, the harder they love. And this dude was 100% a fucking sweetheart. And I got up and I shared, and I haven't shared at like a funeral or a viewing or a remembrance of someone ever. But I just remember thinking of all the times that I wanted to and I didn't. And that's going to haunt me forever. So I got up and I did it, and I feel good about it. And I guess it made sense. I don't know. It wasn't me speaking, if that makes sense. But I'm just, now it's like my dude's, whenever his funeral is going to be, I kind of, now I'm hoping that I'm in town because I'm getting ready to go like on a vacation, but to see our friends Jeremiah and Thalassa get married. And I'm going to create new experiences doing that. But I would like to hope that maybe I don't miss it, but then a part of me is like, man, I really don't want to do funerals. Like, that shit's just, I don't know, it's lost its novelty, what novelty it did have. But yeah, and it's, just there's tons of things that, I don't know, it's like I'm on autopilot. Something else is controlling me, because like mentally or emotionally, I don't want to be doing these things, but like after I've done them, I feel really good about myself. Like maybe I made someone's life a little less stressful or had to struggle a little bit less to like kind of maybe take that on me to struggle more, I guess. And that makes sense. I've been listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson. He says the meaning of life is to make someone struggle less, or something of that matter. I don't know, but
Wow.
it's weird. I feel like I botched that whole thing up now. I feel all red in the face and embarrassed. So.
No, dude, thank you for
No, I
sharing.
appreciate you telling. I didn't know what was going on. I saw some of your posts. I could tell that something was definitely happening in your life, and kind of the same with Matt. Like I wanted to let him be on his vacation and not really bug him. If I texted him, it was always like, "Hey, I'm sorry," quick text, a quick question.
Yeah.
Same with you. I didn't want to like bug you about it, what was going on, but man, I'm sorry to hear all that. It really shows you how fleeting life can be, right?
Man, dude.
Well, now it leads us to kind of what you shared today. You mind sharing with our listeners how this has got you thinking about life being like a bank account?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, so the past 6 months, I've constantly been thinking about morality for whatever reason. And I guess being that young kid, I would always be like, I'll get to it. Or death, that don't happen. That only happens in big cities. And now, like, the older I get, the more I realize that, like, man, you never fucking know, dude. Mm-hmm. Like with you and Sean, the experiences you guys went through. 1 minute this, next minute, what the fuck? Now I'm wearing a fucking shock vest. But yeah, I was listening to our podcast, and it's the Bad Days one. And it's funny because I wanted to bring this up too, Josh. This is when me and you both changed our rates together. And I remember how impactful it was, and it just felt good. And it's always cool when Josh McCartney's like, wow, I got a lot from you guys. And I'm like, what?
Oh, yeah.
Man.
That was one of my favorite episodes. I definitely learned a lot on that one.
Yeah.
Stuff that I still use today, for sure.
Man. And so it just made me pull over, and I don't know, I'm a person that I can read something, and I may have to read it 3 or 4 times before I understand it. And what I mean by understand is like visually have a picture in my head of what it looks like. So I was listening to it, and I was thinking of this analogy, and it was like bank accounts. Well, imagine, and you know, I know what's in my bank account right now, so I can spin and spin and spin. And when it gets too close, then I can start to be conservative and not be balls to the wall with it and just spend it on all this stupid shit. And then it had me thinking like, well, fuck, life. How many times do I spend my time with dealing and doing stupid shit when I'm completely unaware of when that bank account runs out? So it was kind of the analogy that, like, basically be mindful of who you're spending your time with and what you're spending your time on, because you can't see the balance, and you don't know if you still got $1 million in that bank account, or if you've got fucking 9 days left, or if you're going to have a brain aneurysm tonight when you go to sleep.
And when you turned 40, you said that to your sponsor.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, dude, I got
50% of my life's over with. And he was like, shit, it might be 95% of your life.
You don't know.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like,
looking back. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, and just to think, it's like, you know, I will spend more money on a better quality of shoe, or one that I think is popular, or people might think I'm cooler if I'm wearing it. Like these fucking glasses, $400 Gucci glasses, right? So it's like, yeah, cool, whatever. But how could I have spent my money more wisely or more self-serving to me or others? How many times have I went and hung out with someone who I thought was a shiny, nice pair of Gucci glasses, but only to find out that like it was toxic and it didn't really serve me well because I can't get that. I can make that fucking money back again. I can't make that hour, day, week, month again. You know, I was locked up for in prison for 2 years consecutively with everything that I've done time-wise. I've lost 5 years of my life basically being a slave to the city or the government and making $18 a month. And it's like, I can't get that time back. So I need to be more mindful of who I'm giving my time to, and is it benefiting me, us, in the long run? So it's just, it made me think of all these things. And then atop of that, like all this death and stuff. And it's like, man, if I could be in any of their minds right now, are they thinking like, man, I should have done this, or maybe I shouldn't have got high that day, or, and really, in like my sponsor's daughter's case, and poses a whole new question of like, because she wasn't doing shit wrong, just sitting at a stoplight. So it's like, well, I guess that poses the question of like even more, because you could die at any moment, so make sure every single moment counts.
Yeah, it's easy to say that, but tough to live like that, to actually truly live that way, and obviously in my own experience, because of my cancer stuff, I definitely feel that way. I say I wake up every morning and I'm thankful and everything, but it's tough to like, when totally innocent stuff happens like that, like just sitting in your car, like Phil Garcia's wife, like, Phil Garcia is a good friend of mine. We all love him. And, you touched on it, but, his 9-year-old daughter having a stroke, I saw pictures of him and his family in their yard like 3 days prior to that, just bragging about his family, and then boom. Yeah. It's something that she was born with. It was completely unforeseen. Not to get too involved in it, but it's, she's currently, I believe, quadriplegic, and they're hoping that she'll be able to walk again. And I don't even think she can talk yet, but in true form, the tattoo industry, plus outside of that, stepped up, and there's a GoFundMe for him, and they've really raised some money to help him out, which he obviously needs. He's gonna have to take time off of work, and I'm sure there's possibly wheelchair stuff involved, and again, it just the whole like life is fleeting. You're really touching on that for sure. Like, you just don't know. We can't live in that and always be terrified to go outside and live.
Sure,
but it is a daunting task to think about what could be right around the corner.
Yeah,
for sure,
man. And you hear that a lot whenever we've heard reports of like people on their deathbed, and like the common answers or the common regrets aren't ever like their money situation, right? It's usually revolved around the time.
Every time.
What they did with their time. If they have regrets, it's either regretting not spending more quality time with the people that really matters in their life, or it's not at least having tried doing some of their dreams that they were too afraid to do, or lying to ourselves, I got plenty of time, I'll do that eventually. They're all around time.
We all know that someday our time's going to come, but we all, assume it's when we're really old or whatever. So like it takes something like getting sick or having a friend pass away young and kind of like waking you up to go, holy shit, like nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is for sure. You know what I mean? And it is weird. It's like, I've even had to, talk about being out of integrity. Like, I've got some clean scans, so I really booked my tattoo appointment schedule like crazy. I just want to go back to work, and now like I'm missing out on opportunities to go see my family. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of like, what have I done? What's really truly important? Like, that one extra day of tattooing, or maybe seeing my sister who I haven't seen in 2 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you really have to weigh out like what truly is important. And for me, I just turned 47. As I get a bit older, I do realize that like the very few real friends you have, especially as an adult, are incredibly important. And not, and you hear it sounds so cliche, but family for me is of the utmost importance.
Yeah.
I think that's really truly the thing. Time with your loved ones, for sure.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, that doesn't mean we have to fall into the trap of either or, right? Like, I either have to build my business or my family, but I can't have both, and that's not true. Operating out of the abundance of but it all starts with being cognizant of our time today. And whether it's my tattoos, my shop, my coworkers, and my family. And it's us taking responsibility to make sure we're choosing what we really want to be choosing. So like you said, Hip, even though I didn't want to do it, I did it. And afterwards, I felt good about it.
Yeah, you said you felt great, yeah.
You know, and so that's beautiful. And we're lucky that we're all tattoo artists.
Right.
Any of you listeners that are tattoo artists, how blessed and lucky are we that we have wiggle room to still design and create our own schedule. And that's subject to change as we change. If you're listening to this and you're like, man, I do want to be a more present father or a present husband or a present wife or a present mother. If you're a tattoo artist, you actually can create that versus if you're at a job where you're clocking in at these hours, like you don't have any control, you know. So yeah, if you're a tattoo artist, we get to evolve, change, redefine, and reshape, you know, our schedules.
Yeah. Even relocate, you know, it's just easy for us to just get up and start over, you know. I'm always talking about how super lucky we are in that aspect for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of amazing to just be like, I can go work anywhere.
That's
you know?
right. That's right. Yeah, Hip, it's all, I mean, one, dude, I just want to acknowledge you and commend you. And I know, obviously, A, you're still hurting, and B, will for years, whatever the case may be. You know, we all process it different. I just appreciate that, you know, you're someone that, like, stays in the game. But we also know it's not, like, a good plan to, like, be la and denial.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like if you get a broken arm, it needs to heal properly. And if you don't get it casted up right, then it fucking heals wonky and it could, like, be off longer or whatever. So, you know, I have learned that we have to allow ourselves to grieve and heal. That looks different in their process. But one thing amongst many that I appreciate about you is all this terrible shit that was completely outside of your control. You didn't totally just say, well, fuck everything else that's even still in my control.
Which would be so easy to do. Which would be so, we've all done it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Fuck it all. Yeah. You know, like, I don't give a shit anymore. Like you said, I'm hanging up my spiritual coat. So, like, I mean, I didn't even know this was going on. So, like, I feel guilty even just having you be here today with us. So, I mean, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that because, like, if I want to, I appreciate, I always feel weird when I got to give myself a compliment. But I appreciate me being vulnerable and transparent because, like, it's so easy to Photoshop and edit shit out, and it's like, that's not real life.
It's not, and that's another reason why I appreciate about you and your authenticity. Maybe we've all seen the video of there's some guy on stage speaking, talking about the world we live in, and Instagram of everyone sharing either their best life, the best version of themselves, their best pictures. Even if it ain't true or real, they're going to spice it up to present themselves as the best, the most successful, the happiest, the coolest, the fun. But no one, most people aren't showing you, like, their struggles, their scars, their, like, the real shit. Right?
My sponsor just said this on the way back. He said, you know, you always hear about putting the good foot forward. He's like, what's that other foot look like? And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, and granted, like, it is somewhat directed towards me. And, you know, I know what I'm doing right now, why I'm thinking is trying to validate my feelings because they're not as valid as the people that are closer to these people. So I'm kind of like devaluing myself, which is why I'm struggling with, like, what I'm saying or even accepting that, like, it's a hurt. But yeah, dude, it's important that you know, the world gets to see that everybody's just human, you know.
Right. And like you've always taught me, you can't gauge someone else's trauma.
Right.
So it doesn't matter, why are you comparing the level where your pain level should be compared to someone else's, right? You've taught me that not to even make that comparison.
Man. I forgot that I needed that.
Man.
Do you find, Hip, that you're able to kind of, like, bury some of it in your work? Like, if you were tattooing today, when you're working, are you kind of able to set stuff aside, or do you still feel it when you're working?
Man, yeah, this type of stuff totally. But like, let's say like,
which way? You still feel it, or you can?
Well, I can dissociate from it because you're lighter.
I don't have.
So yeah, I can totally dissociate from it. But if say like I'm tattooing you and I'm not finished with the tattoo yet, and the client or you're like,
right,
well, aren't you going to do something here? Then I instantly take it personal, and I can't forget that. Like I almost take it as a personal assault. But yeah, for stuff like this, I can get lost in my work totally.
Yeah.
But it's almost kind of like the dope, So it's like it only lasts as long as the tattoo lasts, and after it's like, oh, the problem's still there. But what it does do that's different from the dope is like when I would get high, I would just go numb mentally and emotionally. With tattooing, I get a chance to like kind of be present with it and observe it. Man, there's been times where like I've tattooed like friends who have passed on their family members, and like a right song comes on and I'm tattooing them, and I'm looking at their face this whole tattoo, and like I start crying, and then me and the family member starts crying because like we remember our homie.
Right.
But yeah, for the most part, I try to keep, I still will be transparent with my client and just let them know that I'm going through a thing, and I appreciate them, but I try not to like overwhelm them with that. But yeah, there's been times where I've gotten tripped up, but also there is a peace of mind that comes in creating that art. And because, even though I'm being paid for it, I'm still providing a service for someone. And again, like what Matt just reminded me, I told him, you can't gauge someone's trauma. So I might be feeling something, but who knows, that tattoo and that client is getting tattooed by me may have gone through a horrendous event too that they're not speaking of.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So we both kind of get unspoken closure, I guess.
Yeah. And I've noticed too, like, and I'm sure you've experienced this, like sometimes people will treat us as like their therapists or whatever. They'll just unload so much. Like I've had people like, I've tattooed people that have told me they've murdered people. You know what I mean? Like I've straight up had, like crazy confessions and just weird shit that like somehow they just dump everything when they're getting tattooed. Man. It's interesting how it can go both ways. Yeah, for sure.
And it's like just, on the surface level, yeah, you're getting some cool design on your skin, but there's so much more in that process where like it's just complete 100% vulnerability and intimacy on both people's parts,
Right.
And what a great I don't want to say burden to bear, but what a great opportunity, because like you could do that in any job, I'm sure, even if you are fucking the front counter at McDonald's. But
right.
Just something about this job, it opens people up more to you, and to be that therapist from time to time is it's an honor, because again, you're being an attraction for someone, and maybe they've lived the good portion of their life in darkness, and now they get to hear something that's positive. Or even me being vulnerable and sharing my stresses, they may have stubbed their toe on the way to get their tattoo, and it gives them gratitude that they're not going through the same thing I'm going through. So it's always like a full circle of like selfless accidents, I guess.
Yeah. I end up having clients that I really like working on because we've just had such great conversations in the past like that, whether it's they're going through something or I am. But you know what I mean? Like it's like I'm always like, oh, I get a tattoo this person, and I like the tattoo, but I also really like the conversations we've had. And
that's right.
You got that kind of like borderline, because I said this before, but like, what do you do when you finish a sleeve? You kind of get to know somebody, and then the sleeve is done, right? And you've had these like deep conversations with some of these people. It's like, are you getting your other sleeve? Like, what are we doing?
Right. Man, but I love that. Isn't it cool? Like, I try and create that with almost every client. You know? Yeah, that's huge. Now it's bigger than tattoos.
Man.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, I've got clients that I speak to like fairly regularly that I've tattooed a lot, but they're texting me to talk about just something going on in their life. Like, it's that kind of like real friendship thing. It's like, I guess you have to be careful on how far you go, because we're not therapists. We don't really have any kind of an answer, but we can listen.
Sure.
We
Right.
can certainly listen. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, man. It's so good. And yeah, I love this hit because anyone can be in a good mood when things are going great. Anyone can treat you with love when you're lovable. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Anyone can have a killer day when it's a killer day. But who are you and who do you become when shit hits the fan? When it all seems to fall apart? When Murphy's Law shows up? When things around you are happening and it's all outside of your control? Who do you become in the midst of that storm? You know? And that to me is like, and everyone's different, but I want to see who are you in the middle of the trial and tribulation? Mm-hmm. Where is your character? And when you've lost the emotion and the excitement that you had when you said you would do the thing, and now when all the feelings gone, who are you in the moment? Do you still do it or not, right? To me, that's what really defines true character, which is why I acknowledged you, because no matter what has happened, you still have shown up. You're sitting here right now today, and not everyone rolls that way, and it deserves to be acknowledged for sure.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
And I loved your analogy, Matt, too, on like if you have a broken arm, like how you have to get it looked at, because if you don't take care of that broken arm, those bones are going to fuse back together the wrong way, right?
That's right.
So like if we're constantly pushing things down and not dealing with them, it's some new version of you is going to come out, and it's going to be different. It's going to have, grown into something new, and that might not be the best thing,
Mm-hmm.
And
so then you might be like forever jaded or some shit like that, or
And then the poor victim that is the straw that breaks the camel's back when the pressure cooker does explode.
Right, and just like we talked about before, it's going to be somebody close to you. You know what I mean? You're just going to fucking snap at your wife, or you're going to snap at somebody close to you because it's the last straw for you, and you've been going through a thing, and you've just been fucking bearing it down.
Right.
That's why I play music. I like to release a lot of stuff in my music. You know what I mean? It's like some people get in their car and scream. I come downstairs and start playing this fucking piano.
And that's why some of my most favorite people on earth are the people who really have every right to be victims because they've been through real hell, real pain in life, right? But chose not to be victims. And some of my favorite people are the people who have been through absolute hell, but you would never know it by meeting them or hanging out with them because they are such light to the world. And somehow they've allowed their pain to be transformed into someone else's beauty, right?
Dude,
those people
our good friend, like as soon as you start talking about that, I always go to this certain chick that me and Matt know. I actually met her through Matt, but yeah, like and it's cool because it's very admirable to like, it's always easy when something bad happens to like jump on the pity wagon and ride that, but there's always someone worse in a worse situation that's handling it way better than I currently would be handling my situation. I appreciate that because it's like the 4-minute mile. You don't think it can be done until you see something like that.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm just kind of connecting to that. I remember one of the few last memories I have of my dad before he passed away is he liked to watch the X Games with me. And the first time we saw someone do like a double backflip on a bike, you know what I mean? It was like it had never been seen before, never been done. And it's like once you saw it, now all these other athletes are like, it just automatically goes into their routine, right? It's like you just said, like until you see it, like the 4-minute mile, it seems impossible. Somebody does it, they raise the bar, and then it becomes commonplace.
And now it's like, if someone can go through absolute hell and you never even know it because they choose to persevere, like that shit's just beautiful to me.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Were you thinking of Heidi?
Yes. I didn't want to say her name.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I'm just always stuck in like always trying to be anonymous. Just the way I've been learning in recovery. But yeah. So cool. So she gets mad. It's your fault. No.
Yeah.
Which she never will, because there's not a
she's
mad
such a
bone
giver. She's such
in
a
her whole
lover.
body.
Yeah, and she's always looking at how she can serve you. She remembers what you talked about last time. She'll just pray for you. She'll randomly text you like encouragement. All the while, the whole time we knew her, she was dying from kidney failure and was on a list for a kidney transplant. It wasn't looking good. So she was like on dialysis every single day, in pain, discomfort, not having her health. But she was the light of the world and in the midst of all, and still is. The good news of this story is after 15 years of being on dialysis, she finally got her transplant, and it went well, and that was like 2 or 3 years ago, and she's been great ever since, and is still the light of the world. She just was in the midst of her sickness, her fear, her doubt, could die, her bank account could be up tomorrow. She put all that aside and would not only make you feel important, but buddy, I mean like fucking love you. And everyone. When she had the right to be in the bad mood, she had the right to be the victim. She could have said like, I'm not feeling it, but she would lose herself in the service of you, and how she can like maybe make your life better today. And it's people like that, the Heidis of the world, that we all should take some notes from.
Man.
Absolutely. Fuck yeah.
Big time. And again, because for the longest time, that a lot of that shit, I'm sure, was out of her control. But she didn't let that rob her of all the things that are still in her control. She went the extra mile to love me, to love you.
In one of the books we read, one of the last page, it basically said happiness is a spiritual principle, and it was just like, really? And it is. It's a spiritual principle. It's a choice. You choose it. It's not something that's like, this happens, so boom, you're happy.
Happiness doesn't happen to you. Exactly.
Right. You are completely in control of being happy.
Right.
Man. I love that. I know on a previous episode I read some great quote about happiness, which I can't quote it verbatim, but remember it kind of alluded to, if like you just look for happiness, you'll find it to be like evasive. But if you look to provide it for other people, watch it just fucking show up and to you and stick to you like a magnet. I'll have to refine that. But you guys roughly remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
And it almost kind of reminds me of that Zig Ziglar quote you just posted.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember that exactly, but you posted it, and it's like the same thing, but you could just replace doing for others, making others happy. Instantly you become happy.
Right. Yeah, the Zig Ziglar quote, which I've always loved, is you can get everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want.
Right.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
I always love listening to him because he always says, friend. Hey, friend. He's got that distinguished Southern gentleman. How you doing, friend?
Right.
So good.
And at the very least, I'm not on fire right now, so I'm fucking winning.
Right, exactly. Yeah, when I say I wake up and I appreciate the day, I always think about like kind of a before and after. Like if things do go sideways, let's take this moment to be like, I can move my limbs, you know what I mean? Like I don't have a tumor as far as I know, so like if things go sideways, I want to appreciate that. I think I've got today.
That's right.
I kind of just for right now, I'm kind of doing the one day at a time. I think I've got today.
That's right.
Man, that's real good. Yep. In case that whole reincarnation thing don't quite work out, this might be the only shot we got. We might as well get it and leave it all on the table. Right. Whether you got 5 minutes left or 50 years left, let's lay it all out there. Say what you mean what you say. express yourself. If you fucking love them, tell them you love them. If you need to forgive yourself, forgive yourself. If you need to step outside your comfort zone and start doing the thing you've been wanting to do for years, telling yourself you got more time because it ain't the right time now, you ain't ready yet, just go ahead and do it now. Lay it all out there right now.
Take a risk.
Yeah.
This isn't a practice life.
Man, I love that hit. He reminds me of that all the time. Hey, this ain't your practice life.
It'd be cool if I could get just one.
Huh?
Right.
If I could just get one.
Yeah.
And
Maybe you had it and you forget.
Right.
That's true. Yeah. Maybe everybody gets one little do-over and you don't remember it. Yeah.
That's right. Wouldn't it be funny if in our past life we were all each other? I was Josh in my past life.
Right.
He was you were me.
So there's a story, if you ever want to read it, called The Egg. And it's really worth reading. It's a short story, and it's about that. It's that what life actually is that you are every single person. You have to live every single person's life, and that is actually what life is. And then you go on to the unknown, something else. But I mean, that would mean that you would literally be me, but you would also be Hitler. You have to go through all of these lives. It's pretty amazing to think about if that's possible. You know,
the rapper Logic has got an album. It's called Everybody. And it's a concept album, and it's along that same premises. It's about a guy named Adam, Atom, and he has to, in order for him to like care, he has to realize that he is everybody, and he has to live through their lives and experience them before he can really like come to the realization that, you know, that same golden rule is how you treat others is how you treat yourself, and treat others is the way you want to be treated. And don't judge someone because you're judging yourself. It's you. We're all one.
You know, when I had my delirium episode in the hospital, these are some of the things that came to my mind. Like, I wish I had written it down, but apparently, according to Nikki, I explained completely to her the way the universe works. Like, it just made sense to me while I was in the hospital having this delirium. And that's what it was, is that everything was one. Everything comes from stardust. Everything comes from space, and we're all connected. And it completely made sense. Like, even today when I asked her about it, she said the weird thing is you would think you'd just be rambling on this delirium and all these drugs, but it completely made sense to her. So I wish I still had all of it, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's just like I just for a moment I figured it all out, at least in my brain, you know.
Sure.
So,
dude, and I believe that. I definitely have said for years, like, separation is an illusion, and I do believe we are all one for sure. That's awesome, man. What I wouldn't give. Can we get you back on that delirium for a day?
I know, right? Like, I don't even really regret now that I'm like out of it. I don't regret it at all. And I think there's a book. I think there's at least a short story, if not a book, in there somewhere too. You know, of just all of the things I experienced. Because it's like, as I talked about it, a lot of people were like, "Well, did you, in your logical brain, you're saying, okay, your brain was swollen and you were on different medications and you were seeing demons, but maybe you pierced the veil." You know what I mean? And I didn't really look at it that way. And when they would say that, I kind of go, "Oh yeah," but sometimes I'm like, I don't know, maybe I did tap into some other dimension, or because I was in. I had an infection in my neck, and they had to stuff these Q-tips like in a hole, like a 6-inch hole all the way down into my neck. And I had to go somewhere else. I instantly learned how to meditate. I feel like I time traveled because I just could not handle the pain of sticking something that long in my neck. And so I was like, I remember feeling like I was just floating in space. I could see the universe around me. Everything made sense. And I just hung out up there while they did my stuff in the hospital, and then when it was done, I just came back down and was back in the hospital bed.
Wow,
it was crazy.
I love that, and what a gift that you have some recollection.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
it was scary at the time, but I'm glad it happened.
Yeah,
I'm just saying it was scary at the time, but I'm glad. Yeah, for sure.
I can't imagine. And can you remember? Did you feel alone? Or did you feel not alone?
No,
do you remember?
I did not feel alone. No.
Okay.
I felt super at peace. I felt very connected. Yeah. Because even though I was like floating in space, I felt not alone or scared. I was very at peace. It felt like it's where I was supposed to be. Almost maybe I had been there for millions of years already.
Familiar.
Right.
There's something familiar about it.
Yeah. So before we're born, because I've faced a lot of stuff with death, and, something that helps me to not have like an existential crisis and freak out is, whatever happened before I was here didn't affect me at all. So for billions and billions of years, I didn't exist, and it didn't affect me in any way. So when my time does come, hopefully that's a really long time away. But other than the fear of, will it hurt? How long will it take? Once I'm not here, whether it's reincarnation or I'm in space or I'm just, worm food, it's not going to really affect me. I'm not going to be in the ground wishing I was, hanging out with my family. As far as I know, I'm just shut off. So that's as weird as that sounds, it's kind of comforting to me.
Sure. I like it, man. I like that. Yeah, and it's consciousness, like right now. Yeah. And what you're even conscious about and cognizant about. And it can because
even if it's reincarnation, like, because if that's the case, I'm likely reincarnated now from something, and I don't remember my past life, and, so.
Yeah, and so that's like an understanding of what you're consciously aware of, and hypothetically what you're not or no longer conscious of the billions of years before your awareness of this birth, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I appreciate that, and that's just you like almost using what you got with what is in your control versus everything that's out of your control that you don't know, and you're choosing perspective that's helpful and giving you some peace. I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have this weird thought of like, since time seems to be a human construct, what if when you pass away, since time doesn't really exist anymore, we'll just say the word heaven. It can be whatever it is, but when you go to, we'll call it heaven, maybe all of your friends and family that you thought you were leaving, they're also there too, because if time is a human construct, then it doesn't exist. So like, even if they died 50 years after you, they're already there in the same spot with you, and whatever the next journey is, we're all together again. You know what I mean?
I like that, man.
I still found, because Nikki and I talk a lot about how we think that we've lived in many lives together. I feel very, very familiar with her, and I found her again this lifetime. You know what I mean? So maybe that's what it is to just go find Nikki and my friends and family, and next chapter.
Well, and I love that, Josh. You just put a little shift or perspective change, because I've never looked at it that way before, but real close, and I love that. Scripture talks about time and us being in God being outside of time. We already know as humans, like in the universe, it's outside of time. Even trips to the moon or what, right? We know this thing called time and space we're locked into is an earthly thing, but Scripture says if we use the word heaven, one day in heaven is like 1,000 years on planet Earth. Right? Wow. And so I've always loved that, because once people get up to heaven, that's why your analogy, like, let's say if you lost someone 50 years ago, right? And let's say you don't pass for another 30. So on Earth's time, there's 80 years separated, right? And now you cross over and you go up there. The person that died 80 years before you will feel like they've been there all of a minute and 30 seconds. 2 minutes.
Exactly.
Even though on Earth it's like, man, I've missed them. I haven't seen them in 50 years. Once you cross over, because they're outside of time, who do you know that's lived to be 1,000? Most people don't make it to 100. One day in heaven is equivalent to 1,000 years on planet Earth. Well, that means anyone you've ever lost, once you cross over, even if they went there 50 years before you, once you get over there, it'll seem like they beat you there by 5 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be great if it was like, it doesn't have to be so terrifying. Like whatever is out there, it would be nice to at least imagine something like that, right?
Right. And so you took it a step further. I always looked at it as like, hey, once I cross over, I'll see him. And my grandma who passed, she'll feel like she's only been there 2 minutes. Be like, man, hey, look at this place. And then maybe my daughters will come right behind me. And even though maybe I was gone in their perspective for 50 years, for me, I'll feel like I just got there and turn around. And here comes my daughters, which is real close to you saying, we'll just cross over and everyone will still be there too. Both are awesome.
It's something that I just have to, like, not to paint a sad story about myself, but just because of my own situation, I can't help but sometimes think of the what ifs. And I'm always kind of preparing myself for like, it doesn't have to necessarily be so dark and horrible. It might be the most wonderful thing. You know what I mean?
Just might. I like it.
Yeah.
Yes.
The big tattoo shop in the sky.
And I love that you have these thoughts, because so many people like avoid even thinking, as if like it ain't. We're all gonna have to face it, eventually, and losing people around us causes us to like face it, to a degree, or have these conversations, have these thoughts. But I love, Josh, that you're staying open to the possibility of it maybe not being terrible at all.
Right.
And it's fun because
something that
no one knows, so we get to make our own meaning to it, and what it's going to be like, and what it could be like, and the what ifs.
Yeah, we hear experiences of near death and all that, but that's not really the full story. You know what I mean? Like they've done tests where people will say they'll float out of their body and they could see themselves from above. So they've actually put sign like they've written messages and put them where only if you were floating above you'd be able to see that message, and then when they come back you're like, what did it say? But nobody's ever been able to see that message, right? So it's probably just in their head where they're having this mental out of body experience, but they're not physically really obviously floating above and seeing this message. So nobody really knows what we have after life.
We
that
die and get thrown into a fucking continuous orgasm.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, could be the best thing ever.
Man.
Although it sounds amazing, like even that would get real old.
Totally.
Right. We die and fucking you get tossed into constantly and continuously for eternity getting your throat tattooed with a 45 mag.
Oh God. Your Achilles tendon, yeah.
Welcome to heaven.
How much longer is this? Oh, forever.
Oh God.
And he's dry wiping. Awesome,
my
guys.
personal hell in that analogy would be all, and he's tattooing me with his feet.
Gross.
No kidding, man. Hip, thanks for just fucking being extra vulnerable today. You always are. And hopefully just this conversation we had has helped someone out there listening that too is struggling with tragedy and loss, because we all are going to. What do you want to say to that person?
Oh man, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Totally not. And I am still trying to be more vulnerable and transparent. So maybe this can help you do that too. And you don't have to do it on camera, which is a plus, because it's really awkward.
Can they write us on YouTube in the comments?
Yeah, totally.
Please do. Like every time, we really want to hear from you guys and your feedback. What's some takeaways? What is coming up? What is rising to the surface in your head and heart from today's conversation? Was it helpful? Did it open up old wounds? Are you now struggling? Or do you let us know how this conversation and what it did for you?
Yeah, thanks for all the comments already. Like, all the comments that come in, like, please continue that, good or bad. Like, I love hearing from all of the people. It seems like these episodes have definitely resonated with people. So that's exactly what we set out to do. So that's fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a good point, good or bad. Any of you all got critiques, wishes, topics you'd love to hear us talk about? Any of it, let us know. Your comments is how we check the temperature on your hearts and how this is even landing.
Yeah, and if you throw an idea out there, we may have already recorded it and it's just not out yet.
Yes, happy day. I love you, Josh. I love you, Hip.
Love you guys.
Love you guys too.
Tattoo Guardians podcast, where we're just doing everything with our hearts to leave tattooing, this industry, and this life better than when we found it. Till next week, thanks, y'all.